Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories.
This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Life of the Party XO. Would I be the a-hole if I stop all of the favors I've been doing for my ex since he has refused the one favor I asked? This is kinda sweaty, but my 30 female ex-husband Greg, 38 male, and I have 2 kids, Louisa, 9, and Ted, 7. We divorced over 5 years ago and co-parent very well. The divorce was because I was happy with our 2 children, but he wanted more, and even therapy didn't help. We have had basically no issues. There's no child support, we're 50-50. Have never had issues having the kids if the other parent has something come up, and understand that it's just about making sure their lives aren't too disrupted. Greg remarried Tessie, 38 female, 4 years ago and they have another child, a boy, and another about to make their appearance in this world in a few weeks. I am marrying my fiancé Luke, 36 male, in February. We've been together for about 3 years and he's known my kids for 2. We moved in together last year. We have a group chat but aren't overly friendly or anything. We only talk about the kids and keep it pretty lighthearted. Our only rules with the other datings is that we would introduce our partners to the other before they met the kids, which went great with both of them. When Tessie and Greg married, I obviously kept the kids an extra week for their honeymoon and once again for my actual week so they could settle in. They didn't live together before they got married. When they had their first baby, I kept our kiddos for about a month, but brought them over a few times to see their new brother obviously, so they could settle in since it was Tessie's first baby. A few weeks ago at one of Lacey's games, Tessie told me the date her C-section was scheduled for, which is in the middle of their custody week. I told her we were excited for them, and of course I could keep them that week and my following week, and we could go back to normal their next custody period. She kind of hemmed and hawed and asked if we could keep them for another custody week to give them a month again to get used to things. I said that was fine. I didn't expect them to need that much time for their second baby, but I know C-sections are major surgeries, and I said I'd be happy to keep the kids. They don't live far from us, so bringing them over to hang out won't be too out of my way, and of course, I love having my kids with me. Anywho, we finalized our plan for our honeymoon, which is 3 weeks. I know it seems excessive, but it's something on both of our bucket lists, but not something the kids would be interested in, and the honeymoon seems like the best opportunity to do it. Basically, what would happen would be that we'd get married on Saturday, my week. The kids would stay with Greg that night and stay for his week, then they would keep them for our week and their next week. So they'd have them for one of my custody weeks plus one extra evening. I don't have family around. My parents died young, grandparents before them, and the aunt and uncle who helped raise me retired to New Mexico, 3-hour plane ride plus 2-hour drive at a minimum. I have friends who have watched the kids before, but I didn't see a single issue with asking Greg to keep them for a week since it seems like there's a bit of precedent. I texted him the general plan and emailed him a more detailed one with locations, days, times, etc. so he could know where we were, how to contact us, if there was an issue. I thought all was well and good. But they never responded until a few days later they emailed me what Luke and I jokingly referred to as the manifesto. It was long, rambling, repetitive, and still somehow partially written by ChatGPT. The gist of it was, what kind of mother goes on a 3-week vacation without her kids? I'm a terrible person in general for asking a young mother to have her stepkids full-time for 3 weeks while I go and enjoy myself. She kept calling Tessie a young mother. I think she means mother of young kids, and I know it's not the point, but it kept annoying me. Also, they wouldn't be alone with her. Greg would obviously be there. I'm a terrible co-parent for asking them to have the kids for 3 straight weeks while their kids are so young. Their newest baby will be 6 months old by then, by the way. Apparently, it's all well and fine that Luke and I don't want any more kids. He has had a vasectomy and known he didn't want kids of his own for a while. But we'd better not think that gives us permission to dump Louisa and Ted on them to gallivant around. I don't think I've ever gallivanted in my entire life. We needed to figure our own weeks out ourselves. This was not life or death, and it was ridiculous to ask them. I got petty after this, especially them acting as if we are constantly dumping the kiddos on them. So I went through the last 4 years of texts and made a spreadsheet of how many times either of us has asked the other to keep the kids and the duration on an Excel sheet. While we both have made these requests, they have done so for 87 nights, 52 times, versus me, 12 nights, 8 times. Obviously, this makes sense since they had a baby, and I didn't send it to them or anything, but it was good to know I'm not crazy. My friends say I should tell them that. Fine, I won't keep them during their custody time after their new baby comes. I'm not going to do that. I love my kids and I want to see them as much as I can, but I do a lot extra for them. Just some examples. I, sometimes Luke if he's off work, pick up the kids every single day after school, and on Greg's custody weeks, I drop them off at their house since he doesn't get off until 5, so that Tessie doesn't have to take the baby out to pick them up. Keep in mind that she does not work anymore. Our divorce decree says that whoever's week it is must drop the kids off at the other parent's house, but I've been doing all of the back and forth for a while again because they have a kid and because it's not that far. 5-minute drive, 20-minute walk if it's nice. I take the kids to all of their appointments, do all of the school parent stuff during the day, etc. Since I have a super flexible schedule and Greg isn't. He would need to use PTO for all of this stuff. We usually split health insurance per the divorce decree. They're on his work's insurance, but since I take them to all of their appointments, etc., I pay all of the co-pays. I keep a tally just in case I would end up owing him money, and I know that he pays towards the premiums. And in the past, it was minimal, but our daughter unfortunately has type 1 diabetes, which has gotten pretty expensive. It wasn't killing me, but Greg mentioned how tight money was once when I was bringing it up, and I decided that it's not affecting my life or daughter needed it, so I've been letting it go. Their son has been in the process of being diagnosed with autism and has pretty bad meltdowns. This is all I know from Greg. So they call me pretty frequently to see if I can come and get the kids for a few hours if things are overwhelming. Of course, I love my kids and spending time with them, but I've had to cancel plans for this and they have not cared. Greg was in an accident and has been using my old car. I got a new one and hadn't sold the old one yet. It's not worth a ton or anything. For the past 7 months with no effort to replace it. Greg travels sometimes for work and they, Greg and the kids, have a cat over there. Normally, Louisa would take care of the litter box if Greg was traveling, but since her diagnosis and until we get her lab's health under some form of control, we both agreed that we don't want her messing with it. They let the cat go outside during the day. Since Tessie has been pregnant, she said she shouldn't have to, and Ted is a little young. He tried, failed, now he helps. So I've been doing it. Anyways, these are all benefits for them that I'm going to inform them are ending. I won't go back on my word to have the kiddos after she has her C-section, but the absolute goal of them to not do the one thing that I've asked for them and that I've done for them have brought me to this. Most of my friends say I'm not going far enough, but a few have said that it might cause a breakdown in our co-parenting relationship, which would affect the kids. That's really the only thing I care about. So now I'm hesitant. Well, OP, I think the term that's missing in Tessie's vocabulary is reciprocity. And the fact that she sent you that ridiculously insulting email just because you're asking them to do exactly what you have already done for them is mind-boggling. She's an idiot. Now, you are absolutely right. The kids are the most important thing here. So regarding the co-parenting relationship, as long as it's cordial, you don't need to bend over backwards to help them all the time. In fact, if it's so overwhelming for them to help you out with the kids this one time, maybe you could look into other arrangements for your honeymoon and then request full custody and child support. In any case, the co-parenting relationship with that email went down the toilet. So no, OP, not the a-hole. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments. Lolo Cold Medina says, honestly, I would send an email with the spreadsheet, pretty badass in my opinion, and let them know that you don't appreciate their ungrateful attitude and that you are more than happy to go by the parenting agreement forward. People want to be petty and ungrateful, and so do I, lol. Andopi responds, I just feel like the best thing for my kids is to have a good co-parenting relationship. My friend's parents were divorced and they did not get along and made her childhood miserable. It's not their fault we didn't work out, and I want to do everything I can to make their lives not that much harder. But I agree, I need to stop being so accommodating. It will be a horrible wake-up call, and I just don't want them to make my kids' lives worse. I Am Rakes says, not the a-hole. Don't let anyone walk over you. They said you were dumping the kids on them when they were doing exactly the same. Andopi responds, I just hated the word dumping, as if my kids aren't a delight to be around. I mean, for their parents. I'm not one of those crazy moms or anything. I just can't imagine saying they were dumped on me. And Hungry Departure 3358 says, they are really biting the hand that feeds them. I would respond to the email saying, wow, I'm so surprised at this response given the positive relationship and co-parenting dynamic we have had thus far. We will make other arrangements for the kids that week. I'll also need to be selling that car, so let me know if you want to buy it priced at this amount of money, or I'll come to get it 5 days from today. I also can't be continuing to care for your cat. I'll be stopping as of now, and Louisa still can't do it. I will still keep the kids for your 2 custody weeks as I had previously agreed to, but going forward, we will be working off the assumption that you will cover your time with them as I will with mine. I'm sorry you prefer this type of arrangement. I was pretty happy with what we had before, but I understand. They may walk it back or not, but if they don't, you don't have to be a doormat. Well, the community agrees OP wouldn't be the a-hole, so now let's move on to the first of 2 updates. Hey everyone, I got way too overwhelmed with the responses, but like I thought, I was completely being taken advantage of, and the friends telling me to let it go can suck it. Just kidding, I know where they were coming from, they were just wrong, and my ex Greg and Tessie do need to be introduced to my good friend Reality. One thing I didn't mention in my last post is that Greg and I have a long history. I've known him forever since we moved to his mom's neighborhood when I was 4. We were always friendly, and then we started hooking up when I was in college and got pregnant. In his defense, he 100% stood up, married me, took care of us, paid for everything while I finished school, and even paid for my college. But even before all that, he's always been a great guy and my friend. I know it seems like I was being taken advantage of, but of course, over the years, people probably thought I was taking advantage of him before I started making the big bucks. It was me who filed for divorce. He said he could probably go to therapy and find a way to make it work, but I knew I couldn't ask him to do that. And there has been reciprocity in other ways. After we divorced, he definitely helped me a lot in setting up my new home before Luke and I got together. Doing things like mowing, cleaning the gutters, fixing appliances. Obviously, those things don't happen anymore, but I'm just saying it wasn't always been me doing everything. Finally, all of this has not been thankless. Up until the manifesto, they were incredibly and vocally grateful and appreciative. Doing things for appreciative people is great and makes me feel good. Unfortunately, now that we are living in the post-manifesto area, I don't get any joy from helping them out like I used to. With all that being said, I can't continue bending over backwards for him just because he was good to me before. Anyways, I got pretty mad at myself at my last post and decided to respond to the manifesto. As I was hyping myself up, Greg called. I was pretty amped, so I decided to answer. He started with apologizing. He didn't say it directly, but I got the gist that Tessie wrote the email in anger because of how overwhelming everything is. He reminded me that it wasn't just his son's issues. Louisa was also struggling to get her diabetes under control. Any other type 1 parent can probably relate. He said she misread my email to think that I was asking for them to keep them for 3 of my custody periods for a total of 6 weeks. Going back to the manifesto, I can kind of see where she was saying that, but it wasn't the most coherent thing to begin with. He said 1 week for our honeymoon is totally fine and they will figure it out. He acknowledged that it was entirely inappropriate and uncalled for. Unlucky for him, I was not in the best mood and told him damn straight it was one of the most deranged and untrue emails I've ever read. I asked him if anything they wrote in the email rang true to him in the cold night of day, and he admitted no. I had kind of been going back and forth on this and was originally going to tell him to go to hell and we could never switch custody times again. I didn't care if they had 5 more kids with C-sections, but I decided against going that far. I told him that I would get the kids when Tessie had her C-section, keep them through my custody, and would expect them to have them back during his next custody period, which still gave them 10 days to recover, etc. If he needed more help, I expected him to figure out any extra childcare for our kids like he will need to with his other son. He started arguing, but I just bulldozed through and told him that he could make this and all of the other times I've helped him out with childcare by watching the kids during my week during my honeymoon. He said that sounded fair and thanked me, but I told him that the email was so far out of line that any and all extras I've been doing were over immediately. He could either find a new carpool, no bus, private school, or I would keep picking the kids up from school, but he or Tessie could get them from my home during their weeks. If they are unable to care for the children due to their son's meltdowns or the new baby, I would be willing to help them, but warned them that due to their accusations, I would start, tracking this. And if I thought it was becoming an issue, I would file for primary custody. I asked him if that would help. He could have the kids every other weekend. I wouldn't demand child support in light of his very difficult situation, even though I know I could. And he insisted that wasn't necessary, that it was on them to figure things out. He really didn't have a lot to say back to any of this and apologized again. I told him that it wasn't impossible to rebuild the trust that we have had in the past, but it was going to take a lot of time and hard work on his and his wife's part because I was done putting in so much just to get attacked. He promised he understood and he'd figured everything else out. I told him that since this was another verbal, also known as not legally binding agreement, the first time either of them slips up, makes outrageous demands, or says anything remotely close to what she wrote in that email, I will bring down the hammer because due to the attacks on my character, I now had a law on retainer. I hadn't met with a lawyer yet, but sometimes you need to bluff. He confirmed he understood. Tessie sent me a text apology. It seemed sincere, but I don't trust her. I know Greg wouldn't throw her under the bus, but the fact that she thought it was okay to send such a demeaning and demonizing email to me after all I've done for her really ruined any grace I was willing to give her. I sent her a short acknowledgement text and went on with my day. Both their lives are about to get much, much more difficult. If they try to put any of that discomfort or difficulties on my kids, I will move swiftly. But also, if it means that my kids get a little less at their dad's house than they do here, that's not the worst lesson for them. Their needs will always be met. I know that. And they've been in therapy for a while, so while I'm concerned that Tessie could take her frustrations out on them, I truly think they would tell me. I read so many other stories on here and realized 2 things. 1. So the thing with the car, it's meant for my friend's stepdaughter for when she gets her permit. She is 15 and we all love her so much, but she has that disease that 15-year-olds get where she really doesn't have any motivation whatsoever. So I was talking about all this to a friend, she told her husband, and he marched upstairs and told his daughter to get dressed so she could go and take her permit test. She failed, smiley face, but is going to try again next week, and he is purchasing the car next week. Greg knows, and knows he has until then to acquire a new one. 2. The cat isn't Tessie's cat. It was Greg's guilty divorced dad first Christmas gift, lol. I really like the cat. She's very sweet and snuggly and I haven't minded helping, especially since Louisa does feel bad she doesn't do it anymore. Honestly, if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have agreed to help. Luckily, the induction is soon and Greg won't be traveling for a while, so it's a moot point. Obviously, if they were to decide to get pregnant again, they would need to hire someone to do the litter box going forward. I've probably only done it 3 times, but I see that was crossing some boundaries I should have put up. I'm going to keep enjoying the life that I've worked hard to build. I know they'll always be around and in my life, and it's unfortunate for them that the choices they made got them in this situation, but they're going to have to rebuild their village. I'm excited for the wedding and especially excited to go to Japan. Those things, and of course my kiddos, are my focus going forward. Peace. Alright, so now let's jump 2 months into the future to the final update. Greg and Tessie had another little boy like a month ago. I did take the kids for one of their custody weeks. Tessie is still mad at me though and sent me this whole long text the week before telling me that when I brought the kids to the hospital to see the baby, she didn't want me bringing them up and they'd just have to figure out how to get upstairs themselves because Greg would be busy. But I'd need to stay and not leave because she didn't know how long they could be there. I was like, okay. I know with their last kid, they specifically invited me in to meet the baby, but that's not a big deal to me. I know this sounds bad, but I really don't like babies, lol. But then it made me be like, I don't need to be at the woman's beck and call, so I just had Greg's mom take the kids to meet the baby, which was apparently not the right call and I got in trouble for, lol. I also have stopped the group chat thing and I'm only communicating with Greg. Yes, Tessie still contacts me, but I don't respond or acknowledge them unless it's directly about the kids. But otherwise, I've just not let their drama affect us. I don't bring these things up, but they basically told Luke that when their brother has a meltdown, they just hang out up or downstairs and it's not that big of a deal to them. But they like it when I come and pick them up. And they didn't tell him this in confidence, just randomly, so I told them they were not being good siblings and they could always call me, but that was their family too. So I don't even feel bad about not picking them up any time they ask, but sometimes I still do. But now I'm in a weird place because obviously I was invited to their wedding and everything, but I don't think I should invite them to ours. Lol, I mean obviously not, right? We have a lot of mutual friends and apparently she told one of them that if I kept this up, this being not doing whatever they say, that they'd file for child support and the only reason they haven't before was because I was helpful. Like, good freaking luck with that, guys. But when the mutual friend mentioned our wedding, in neutral terms, but she's doing something for it, apparently they acted like they'd be going. So I probably need to figure that whole thing out because they must be smoking crack or something, lol. Ignoring, not helping them with things was pretty hard for me at first. Maybe I was a bit of a people pleaser, but not caring what they think about me has helped a lot with that. I just wanted a good childhood for my kids, but I can only control that over here. Have a great day. Well, OP, you could maybe invite them just for the ceremony and not the reception. Also, do not request a gift or give them your registry. But other than that, Tessie needs to shut up and sit down. So here's wishing you the best for the upcoming wedding, OP. Thanks so much for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a quick mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Surrendered Mail. Not working enough pallets, so I worked more pallets. Retail. Simple and straightforward. At an old job, I was once called out for not doing enough work. I wasn't shifting enough pallets of stock. So I started working only a big easy pallets that would go out in seconds, such as bins, microwaves, etc. I worked a homewares department which covers a lot of stuff, from cookware right down to soap and makeup, and completely avoided the smaller stuff that takes forever. Of course, eventually the little stuff started piling up and eventually had a piss poor workflow because everyone was stuck doing nitty-gritty stuff in business times. Turns out, putting out hundreds of little items when you're busy is disproportionately harder than 10 big things. To add to it, I was congratulated for completely turning things around and working plenty, to which I said I probably worked less hard and explained what I did. There was a certain level of vindication upon seeing the reaction. It wasn't fully malicious, I admit, because I didn't want trouble for not working when I was one of the harder workers. Pretty satisfying situation overall. Good for you, OP. Basically, the people with the clipboard learned what the reality was like. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.